Okay, talking about that, let's go back to open loops in life. Right? And there is a note here that talks about business plan, but really, man, I think tomorrow I'll just address all the issues that I'm actually having with work directly, and that'll be like a direct 4 or 5 video series. Hmm. All right, open loops in life. It's funny because I actually wrote that 4 days ago. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette and come back. So I'm back, and here's what my note looks like. Open loops in life. What I want to do and what I want and the things to get over them, basically. What do I want to do to get over basically the things that I did before? I have 4 open loops right now that I'm very much clear about, and 3 of them are in writing because I wrote a series of an experience that I had for 50 days. So I wrote on each day because I took notes every one of these days. So I wrote them and I posted them online, but I never published them. And so I have to edit them. I'm only up to day number 12, and I really think I should like should, must, need are not words we should actually we have to use. See, I always said need or should use. The words the words we want to use are always I want to get over something. It is something that needs to be that that it is something I don't want to be a part of my head anymore. So writing them down, editing them one last time before I post them should be a thing. Even though I started publishing different things right now online, but that created new open loops because I kind of like started a new thing that I'm doing, which literally means that I will be I will have more stuff layered on top of each other. It's what we call a stack in coding, and a stack is basically used. It's simple because what you do is when something new comes, you kind of like put it somewhere, and then you put something else. The new thing you put it somewhere else, and the new thing you put it somewhere else, and ultimately you stack them on top of each other, and then one at a time you kind of like get rid of them. It's a stack. And we use that in many things, especially when it comes to programming. That's how browsers interact with each other. That's how websites interact with the browser. That's how basically you interact with databases. And that's how multiple different pieces of information get sent to multiple different places because each one is basically, they stand in line to get their job done. And normally computers are super fucking fast, especially these days, the way they're designed and all that stuff. But ultimately, it just takes like milliseconds for thousands of things to get past because we are dealing with electricity. But if you don't pass them, they stay there. And eventually, man, eventually people realize there's a lot of stuff that don't really go anywhere, but they like kind of like get stuck in the process. And so they started writing code that cleans them up. And I basically have some cleanup to do. One is the editing of my papers. I need to get rid of them. And they're not papers, they're literally like a 1 2 minute read of like the experience of the day and how I was feeling. Because learning how to code was very strong for me. Like for me, it was like, oh my God, I'm learning how to code. It was one of those, it was one of those things that got me super hyped up that I haven't been excited in a while. It had been like 2 years since I was excited, and almost every single time I got excited over a course of 10 years. It just never I was never able to build on top of that excitement. I always had to go find something else that's exciting. Over the past year, I've been doing code, so I've been getting more and more excited every single time I do it. But that was like my break. That was like my chance. It was a 3 month course that I did not finish completely. Lots of things, man. We can talk about that sometime in the future if you guys want as well. But hey, somebody has to ask me. Somebody has to engage with me. Anyways, So the open loops in life, and there's a book I'm reading, it's called Getting Things Done. He describes them beautifully. He describes how, like, most of the time, what your mind does is needs is clarity. What your mind demands is clarity. And the only way to give them clarity is for you to get over some shit. And you have to find the methodology to get over some shit, whether it is some shit that you have to like just finish, send a fucking email, or whether it is plan a wedding. You have to get over some shit. Your mind would actually go, bah, okay, I'm over this. What else? But if the small things that you actually think about, or you want to do, or you want to build on top of, kind of like pile up in your head, how can you sort out? How can you get better if the things you started with are not fully complete? And I also learned that. I also learned that while in that boot camp, and actually write about it because they wanted us to do stuff so fucking fast that if you're delayed by random things, whatever. Like for me, I was literally just like in my fields. But when I get stuck and I can't find a solution and I have to deliver the next day, and if I don't deliver, they start a new project, which literally means I don't get to complete what I started. So it's an open loop in my head. And on top of all of that, what I would benefit from it is not really there. So after the 2 months where I finished the course, I took 15 days just stare into the abyss and de-stress. It was just like fucked up. And then I went back to point zero and started coding from scratch again. And I tried to do every single project from scratch, everything except for the design, because I just wanted everything to connect. I wanted to understand how the functionalities work, which not necessarily my best of ideas, but at the very least, I got over by finishing the loops that were closed in that 2 months. I got over it and I was able to kind of like move forward and start thinking of my platform and building it and all the things I would want to consider when it comes to it. It was a fun journey. I'll talk to you about it one day. But the ideal goal and the way I would always be describing it is if you start something, finish it. And open loops in life. How do we discover them? How do we notice them? And seemingly, these are all open loops about things that we're interested in or we want to include in our lives. And they become the actual source of our energy. And then they become the source of why we don't have energy. Because most of the things that we have get like pulled by them because they deserve our attention. And they need to be done in order for them to not want attention anymore. How do you interact with yourself when you're kind of like pushing them to the side because you did enough for you to feel confident to the next step, but you know full well that you're not going to be able to complete the next step without them being done? If I were to write the open loops in my life, how many of them would there be? And if I were to target them individually, which are the ones that I would choose, and how would I choose them? And in full honesty, right now, I I don't see myself being productive at all. Even though I'm getting a lot done, I really don't see myself being productive the way I kind of like could be progressing. And I don't know if it's because my goals are kind of like faltering or just because I am the time consumption whatever I'm doing is consuming a lot more energy than I thought it would. Uh, I did take a break and come to like for like 5 days to hang out in the mountains where my dad is. And tomorrow will be the night I spend alone. And after tomorrow will be the night I go back to Beirut Thursday. So there's a lot that's basically, I really think that, I really think that open loops in general are more of a commanding presence than the closed ones. Because the closed ones become a part of you. So an open loop is definitely something that keeps telling you where you still have work to do, where you're still not over something, and where you still have work to be done. And if there is a lesson I would take from the past 3 months, is the fact that in my head, with all the things that I've accomplished, I was never able to move past some things, specifically because they were open loops. And I can label that when it comes to the music. I can label that when it comes to the French. I can label that when, like, I never took one day to just kind of like get everything out. I never took one day, and I don't think I'm capable yet of doing something like that. Maybe at my best, what I could do is I could like isolate an hour, 2 hours a day of like full focus towards these things, so that over the next couple of weeks, I'm actually able to kind of to get over it. And it's funny because like now that I think about it, I can designate my mornings for this kind of stuff, but my mornings right now are more dedicated towards the work that is supposed to be paying me. And I'll be able to dedicate my afternoons to the actual, well, it has to be in the afternoon. It has to be at the evenings actually. The evenings is where I YouTube and I basically consider stuff and I get creative because all my day is exhausted, so I won't be doing those. But at the very least, I feel like I have to dedicate a certain timeline, a certain hour of the day, maybe early in the morning, because that's when like I have the most energy and I still nothing is actually involved with me. So if I wake up early and I actually do my walk early, and then I have like a couple of hours before the day actually starts, and maybe that's the time I actually could engage with everything and just start getting stuff done. And there's simple stuff, right? Like the work is already done. It's just not edited and published. The publishing part is the strong part. Because that means I'm exposing it to the world, which means like khalas, I can't take it back. And that completes the loop. And the other one's also about the book that I'm writing, which I got stuck at one point, but only because I forced some thought process. And now the thought process has shifted. And that's the reason why I actually wanted to take this break, is because I wanted to consider it. But the storyline became a lot clearer once I actually like started thinking about just taking some space and understanding what I might be doing wrong. Maybe all you need to realize the loops is just space. But how do you do that? How do you do that within your environment? How do you detach yourself from the environment you're in without actually still feeling the pressure and the constraint of it? How do you get out of it? Maybe that's something I need to think about. Because I tend to move and change my environment in order for me to look at the other environment differently. Ah, maybe it's too soon for me to move to a better office, just so I can get over the stuff that the old office wasn't able to, or I wasn't able to in the old office. Huh, how about? All right. Thank you.